I'd like to call the Plan Commission meeting to order on Tuesday, December 12th, 2023 at 5:30 p.m. Janelle, could you please take roll call?
Bertle,
Here.
Bell, here, Gretzmacher,
Here,
Kane,
Here.
and Harv. Here. Shampoo was excused.
Is there a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So moved.
Motion by Bell,
Second.
second by. All those in favor respond with an aye.
aye.
Opposed, carried. Janelle, can you fix that?
Oh, sure.
Is there a motion to approve the November 20th, 2023 minutes?
So moved. Second.
Motion by King, second by Bell. All those in favor respond with an aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, carried. Item wait, did I forget comments and correspondence?
Yeah.
Okay. Comments, correspondence, and concerns from the public. Is there anybody joining us tonight that would like to address the Plan Commission? Okay, and I didn't see any correspondence in our packet.
The only correspondence that I'm aware of, is in regard to the Glen Lane project.
Okay, and we'll address that.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, 6A, conditional use permit, 2 12-unit apartment buildings on Glen Lane, Premier Fieldcrest Sister Bay LLC. Julie?
Okay, so, this is a conditional use permit application, and we did have a preliminary review on it where we had discussed some of our concerns with the project. It is for 2 12-unit apartment buildings off of Glen Lane. The developer or the owner is Premier Fieldcrest of Sister Bay LLC. In our preliminary review, we had asked for revisions to the site plan in regard to tree planting and things of that nature. They did make all those changes that we did request. There was one question on the access to Highway 42, which I can get into or discuss after we get the public comments on this matter. We did receive one letter on this one, and it was that I'm aware of, and it was from Steve Muzinski. I'm not sure if Janelle had forwarded that to you or not, but Mr. Muzinski is a neighbor, and he had looked at the access issue at Highway 42 and had offered some recommendations on how that could be revisited or revised. I also received some information from the DOT, so I won't hand this out or go into detail about it. I believe you have seen it. So with that, we have no other information at this time, but should be able to answer some questions after we take comments during the public hearing period.
Okay, at 5:33, I'll open the public hearing. Is there anybody joining us that would like to speak for or against this conditional use permit? Yes, sir.
Got some comments about phase 2 apartment.
Name and address, please.
Steve Musinski. 3328 Lake Drive, Hartford, and our property is 10519 Fieldcrest Road.
Thank you.
Different. Okay. We've got some comments about this. Kind of interesting, it's exactly 6 years ago to the day that we had a public hearing for phase 1. That's coordination. Well done. Because there's some people here, I think, that weren't here for the phase 1 public hearing. There's some questions that we raised at that time that I'm just going to briefly mention. So everybody's on board with where we were at with this. At that time, I had complained about the pavement being shown 5 feet into the 10-foot setback area on the south side of the property. I felt there would be stormwater running into our property, that the present stone fence, which at that, before the project was acting as a stormwater berm, they raised the elevation on that drive, so that's actually at the top or higher than the stone fence. And I was afraid that that water was going to wash over the top of that stone fence, because that's what was kind of the berm before the project was built, where the grades were revised. And I was also concerned about snow being pushed onto our property and apartment tenants using our property for whatever, they're trespassing onto, at least be a better way of saying it. And at the time, I proposed a solution that I just said, well, just move the two buildings that were in the middle, about 7 feet northwest, and that would move the driveway and everything else. And then the problem goes away with that encroachment into the setback area. And apparently Joel told me, well, at the hearing, he said he would look into moving the buildings with asphalt out of the 10-foot setback area. And he said he would work with us to resolve other issues. And I thought, oh, great. Well, the planning commission apparently the month after that granted a 5-foot variance for the pavement, which I was shocked at because there's nothing easier to get out of a setback area than a piece of pavement. And ironically, on the plans of record that were forwarded to the village, it shows that radius is being revised and that thing is out of the setback area. So somewhere there's 2 sets of plans and somebody didn't follow one to get it out of there. But there was no reason they couldn't have gotten out of there. Now you're probably saying, how did this all work out, Steve? Well, I'm glad you asked. During construction for phase one of the things that we got very frustrated with, I think Julia talked about this too, is trash going onto our property. It was a regular issue. Every weekend we go out there and there's trash all over the place. House wrap, foam board, fast food containers, you name it, it was there. And first I was just picking it up and throwing it in our garbage and getting rid of it. And then after a while I was like, this is stupid. I just started throwing it back over onto the other side of the stone into the property. And I was wondering, how does this trash get onto our property? I mean, you know, it's the dumpster like way 100 feet away or so. Oh, here's this big dumpster out there, and there's these 2 guys emptying cardboard out of the back of a van, and the dumpster is heaped 2 feet over the top, and they can't even get the stuff on top of that, and they're still throwing it up there. It's like, well, that's how that happened. And I went looking for somebody, but there was nobody there to talk to. So it's like, all right, and the other 2 guys just said, well, we got to get rid of it. So anyways, I had gone and talked about some of these issues with the I guess you call it the apartment manager or whoever is living in that little building or had the office in the building. The project manager, probably the apartment manager now. And I had said that my wife had talked to her first, but we were concerned because we're finding fresh piles of dog poop on our property. We're finding tracks in the snow in the wintertime that appear to come from the north to the south. We found candy wrappers, cigarette packages, glass liquor bottles, things like that laying there too. And so we talked to her and she had talked about it. She said, well, she didn't know if she could control the tenants or tell them what to do, that kind of thing. So that was a couple years later, and the snowplow operator was plowing the snow from the apartment project in the paved area onto our property. We're talking like 10, maybe 15, 20 yards of snow at a crack. And so all the snow is coming over the thing. And so I talked to the manager, I think, winter before last, or summer before last winter, a year ago. And I said that this isn't acceptable. I said, we've got standing water at the end of our property now since the apartment complex was built. I said, you got to do something because we're not going to put up with this. And what happened was when because that elevation for that pavement is higher than the stone fence, or at least at the same height. When the guy started plowing the snow, he basically bulldozed all the bushes and small trees out there and created this freeway right onto our property. It's like, well, of course people are going to walk there. It's almost paved right onto our property. And so they did that. And she said she was going to go and talk to the guy. This was the end of last summer. Well, last winter was the same thing all over again. Snow pushed onto our property. Nobody seen it there. Wasn't very happy about that. And I told her, I said, the thing to do is to put up a fence to keep people out of it because it's wide open now. And I said, you know, it's like, you don't have to put 600 feet of fencing in there. That's kind of ridiculous. But at least cover up that whole area with a solid fence. So your snow removal contractor doesn't keep doing this because you obviously can't control him. And so that people don't keep knocking on our property. And she just said, well, we're never going to go for putting up a fence. Fine, then you figure this out because we're getting very frustrated with this. And people have actually gone and walked onto our property and put pumpkins out there because they're trying to attract the deer. Well, we're the ones that get to clean up this rotted mess in spring before we can cut the grass there. This is the kind of stupidity that's going on. And one of the scariest things that I found was, I was cutting grass one summer, I think it was summer before last, remember when we had all the red flag warnings for like a couple of weeks, it was so windy. And I'm out there and I'm walking around and here's an empty cigarette pack laying in the ground. And I look, and right next to it, a couple of cigarette butts that somebody put out. The grass is bone dry and somebody's smoking on our property. Now think of what happens if a grass fire gets started there. Where does that go? Do you set a building on fire? Do you go and like start a 10-acre grass fire and good luck trying to put that out? And then there's all the smoke damage, possibly the apartment buildings. this is kind of like very scary, or I felt it was pretty scary. And so it's like, what are you gonna do about this? And that was where I came up with this idea of putting that fence along their south property line, at least where that area is open. And I think Joel had mentioned at the phase one hearing about putting up some discrete no trespassing signs. I think that might have worked at one time, but now it's all bulldozed down, it's flat, stormwater going onto our property. It's like, okay. And I did talk to Julie about the stormwater issue, and ironically, Dan Clancy, the Public Works Administrator, went out there with somebody, I don't know who, and they walked the property along its south line, and they found that when the culverts were put in, somebody plugged them up with sandbags, probably during construction, and nobody ever unplugged them. So maybe that's why we've got 2 to 3 inches of standing water now at the end of our property. So hopefully we're gonna wait and see if that does it or not. Now, where I'm coming from is, I wanted to have somebody sit down and say, I've got some authority and we're gonna solve these issues, and that hasn't happened, and I'm kind of frustrated about that. And where I'm coming from is, if no steps are taken to make someone responsible for these kinds of issues, I'm not in favor of phase 2, forget it. Because putting another 24 buildings in and just gaining control of the first 48 is absurd. I wanna see that something happen with that. And there's also a couple other issues that I think are relatively important. I had talked to Joel and I'd asked him, well, Dan actually asked me to call him, because I was talking with Dan about the stormwater issues. And Dan had said, he says he didn't know if the stormwater plan for the apartment project involved both phase 1 and 2, or it was just phase 1. And he told me to call Joel. So I did, and talked to Joel very cordially. And he said, no, he said the stormwater was originally developed to accommodate both plans, phase 1 and phase 2. It's like, great, got it. But then there's another issue, and this is where I'm a little bit quandary, because I'm commenting, but it's kind of up to you guys. In some ways, it's not fair to Joel, because remember all those properties got built along Fieldcrest Road for homes or commercial rental places, what you want to call them? Just the impervious area from those properties are contributing another probably 15,000 gallons roughly of stormwater downhill every 1 inch of rain. And that doesn't include the turf grass that's got about a 6 to 12% slope. It doesn't include any of the runoff from Fieldcrest Road, and it doesn't include the undeveloped plots yet. So now Joel's got his plan set for basically the stormwater from the apartment project. What does this go and do now to have all that additional water flowing down there? Because I don't want to see apartments flooded out, because right now, I mean, Gravity is the stormwater manager there, and it's going to take all this down. And I think probably before Joel got involved with the phase 1 project, you may remember back, we got that, what, 7 inches of rain in something like 3 hours in Sister Bay. Every home along Sister Bay, or I mean, along Fieldcrest Road, flooded in the basement or crawl space. And most people, like our neighbors across the street, they had a finished basement, they lost everything, because the water just came up through the floor. And someone drained it in through basement window wells and things like that. So now if you get that much water flowing downhill from Fieldcrest Road, basically towards, what would be Country Lane, that general direction to the southwest, what does that do to the apartment project? What does that do to the stormwater plan? I don't know. In some ways, it doesn't seem fair to the apartment project, but on the other hand, it seems like somebody has to address this, because when I look at those new developments, the trees are gone. They've got some little short stuff that's planted there. But the Norwegian study that I read said that before any small tree can have any effect environmentally, either with wildlife or carbon sequestration or runoff control, it takes 15 years for a forest to get that big to do any of that. So those basically trees are worthless for erosion control. And so if you go and figure that whole lot where all that turf grass is, you're talking even more water running down the hill. Because if you get a good dump of a thunderstorm, turf grass doesn't do anything. It's just gonna run right off. And then the other thing I was gonna mention is, I had forwarded some stuff to Julie about the access on the Highway 142, or not Highway 42, sorry. Now, I've dealt with this before with the DOT. The problem that I got involved in as part of a plan commission member was involved a cross-access agreement where you had 2 homes trying to get 2 separate driveways onto a state highway. And then DOT basically said, no, we're not going to do that. But they wouldn't approve it either unless the township went and had ordinances that covered cross-access agreements and specifications for that. So I did write those ordinances at one time. And eventually the homeowner didn't go through with it because they wanted free sewer, and the village that was in that sewer service area wasn't going to give free sewer, so the whole thing got dropped. But the DOTs at that time said, gee, we've never had anybody come up with a cross-access agreement specification, so I don't know what they did with it, but I can forward it to you if you're interested. So as far as I'm concerned, I want to sit down with somebody with this project, and we want to get some of these issues solved. I want to see an access onto Highway 42, because I think that put any more traffic on the field test is absurd. And I also want to go see some of these stormwater issues addressed. Not just for us, because for us, it's flooded grass, it's kind of a mess in spring, you know, the water's gonna get snow, stuff like that. But I don't want to see the apartment project get flooded out either. And I'm just thinking back to when we got that 7 inches of rain, what happens, our basement was full of water too, but it's not finished, so it's no big deal. But what happens with an apartment project, you got that money and that many people sitting there, and all this water's coming down the hill. And eventually all this water is gonna get all the way down to Country Lane, because that's where this whole drainage basin goes. And the basin is actually from Highway 42, Field Crest, Highway 57, and Country Lane. And where it crosses under the very lowest spot is down by Hammersmith TV and the Open Heart, and there are these two culverts that go under Highway 42. Excuse me, Highway 42, and then heads out towards the bay. I think there was a Little Sister Golf Course or something in there at one time. That's the direction it goes. And Dan said he was working on getting some new surveying equipment, and he wanted to do a culvert inventory because he had found culverts were put in backwards, the inlet's lower than the outlet. Good luck with that. Culverts plugged, you know, didn't do anything. And he says he wants to get to that, but he said Rome wasn't built in a day, so that's where we left the discussion. So anyways, those are my comments. So, any questions?
Thank you, Steve.
You're welcome.
Yes, if you're, if you're willing to, forward the cross-access agreement, we'd be interested in taking a look at it.
Okay, forward to you.
Sure.
Okay.
Anyone else here like to speak? Yes, ma'am.
Seems better now. I get the follow up, which is up to, Mary Buzinski, 3328 Lake Drive, 10519 Fieldcrest Road. One of the things I wanted to address also, if you go and approve all this with having 2 more buildings with the additional 48 more people, isn't it? If we have the 2 buildings at 24, you know, 2 people per building. You know, a lot of the people that live in this complex have dogs. And that's one of the issues that we've had with, the people in the apartment complex. One thing, there is increased foot traffic on Fieldcrest, but they're also not picking up after their dogs. And they've also come into our back part of our property and used our back property. So when I was looking at the site plan, I noticed in the southwest corner, there's a big open area. And I thought, okay, it's kind of a ideal spot to have a fenced in dog park area. So that the people that live in the apartment complex can let their dogs run there, poop there, pick up after them, instead of walking them out on the street or in our yard, our property, and letting them relieve that way. I also think it would be something that would maybe add to the complex a little bit, and even throw in a couple picnic tables in that area. So, you know, when you've got, that large of a complex that's coming in and it's right next to a residential area, we've got to do some things to, I don't know, blending, or, you know, so that you don't have this huge influx of people coming in and, you know, abusing our properties. So it's just something I was going to fill out for you, if that's something that you go ahead and approve as phase 2, that is something I think that, the developers should seriously consider and put in, to have something for the dogs, because there are a lot of people that have dogs. That I even had one of the residents come and approach me and want to let their dogs run in our property, and I said, can't do, so. That's all that I have to say.
Thank you. Anyone else care to speak for or against? Yes, Steve.
I was gonna mention one other thing too, this is just more general information. Because the track in the snow, it appears that people must, I don't know, walk right into our property like near the north edge, and then they let their dog run loose. Last spring, I heard coyotes calling to each other, and some of the tracks in the snow, to me, look very much like coyote. So I don't know if they're there or not, because usually my experience with coyotes is they're very shy, and they'll see people and they'll go the other way. But I don't know about a dog running loose in their territory, so for whatever it's worth. I don't know how to get that natural apartment closed, but, people were saying a cat is a coyote snack, if you're a small dog, it's good.
Thank you. Okay, if there's nothing else, I'm gonna close the public hearing at 5:51. And I'll let Julie talk about what she has, and then we can have some general conversation of the commission members.
Sure, at our last meeting, we had some, discussion about the access onto Highway 42. And so I had reached out to, the DOT, and I'm just gonna report back what they had told me. You know, Joel from the engineering firm had said that DOT wasn't gonna give them an access. And the DOT did say, they would not approve a permit for this location with the current driveway being non-conforming. They said there is no grandfathering of a non-conforming driveway. The Wisconsin DOT is not telling anyone they can't use the driveway today, but the non-conforming driveway will need to be addressed someday, and they may or may not allow a driveway to be in the area where the applicant is stating they have an easement. Because if the owner of the lots abutting want to correct this non-conforming issue, we could issue permit to all parties at that time. And then they just add that he would, DOT also mentions that having the residents access onto Highway 42, they feel it's safer that they access onto Fieldcrest versus accessing onto 42. So
They would be wrong.
yeah, this is just what the DOT is telling us. So, I did briefly mention this to Joel when I came in this evening, and told him that we would need to talk about it. It may be one of those issues where we say, okay, you don't have to access at this time. But when we get this matter cleaned up, if we get this matter cleaned up at that time, they would have to install the access. And Joel said they would be okay with that. So. The other comment I had was from Dan, Planscare Public Works Director. He just asked that we just change our development agreement to just make it very clear that prior to the installation of any water and sewer, they contact the Public Works Director. And I think a lot of people do that. He just wants it in writing so people remember you've got to call the village before you do anything. And those were the two comments or concerns that we had based on our discussions last week and then Dan reviewing them.
So in your report, on page 10, the very bottom, other concerns previously discussed were rectified on the plans reviewed at the last meeting and included herein. And when I get to the landscaping plan, is on page 17. I don't see any trees in front of the building along the lot line to screen the back of the gas station. And that view, so all along here.
Yeah, so they did add that. We did, let me find which page that was because we looked at that the last meeting.
But that's
And
not what's in our packet.
it should be, I mean, this should be the plans that we reviewed at the last meeting. Go to page 23. That is the landscaping plan that we, reviewed last month and had told them we thought it was a much better plan than what they had proposed the meeting before.
But there's still nothing here. And that's where the building is, and if you, because I went to the GIS.
They have 2 crab apples in front of the building. And then in front of their parking area, they have Colorado blue spruce, autumn
I
blaze.
know,
maple.
but that's not on the property line.
The meeting
And
before, we had told them not to put it on the property line to bring it in. Joel,
We didn't put it, I think the area you're questioning, because that's where the water and the sanitary sewer run. We didn't want to put large trees over your sewer lines, their water lines.
a pretty ugly view from that building.
Yeah, I don't like that gas station either, but that can't change.
So how do we address that?
Well, in October, we asked them to revise it, and then they came back with this in November, and we told them it was okay. You can still change it, but they did do what we've asked them to do.
Yeah, but if you pull up the web map from the county, there is literally nothing. Little clump here. But nothing.
Yeah, there's definitely not landscaping on the adjacent parcel.
So I wouldn't like living in that building. Looking at a big semi trailer, if it's still there, I don't know if it is, but it's on this
Nope,
picture.
it's gone.
Okay. The back parking lot, the back of the building, dumpsters. And just the other question that I had is. We had talked about the size of the playground. Last time, I can't tell from the plans though, is. Outside of the playground area where you're going to have it mowed, is that grass or just, is it actually lawn
Yes.
beyond that?
Yeah, and we're visioning like a box with, you know, the mulch inside and the playground equipment inside, and then outside, I think we were calling for, a picnic table, and then that'd be like in a lawn area,
Okay,
which is shown on L 1.1, which is the second landscape plan.
so 1-1. Okay. I just wanted to make sure that there was some actual lawn for the kids to run around on. And I think, do you, pertaining to the dog issue that you allow dogs in the apartments? Is there a maximum size that you, a weight restriction or anything else like that? Or is any sized animal allowed?
No, there's breed restrictions. I don't know the exact max pound, but we do have breed restrictions, so for instance, Rottweilers and things like that, we don't allow in the apartments, so, and there is a.
Oh, the poor Rottweiler. They're
Bad
good
rap, right?
dogs, they have a bad rap.
But no,
Yeah.
there are restrictions and,
Okay.
with pets and number of pets.
So listening to the testimony. I'm gonna get off on a small tangent here. I think it's a good idea, that if a complex, allows dogs, that there should be an area for them to run. And whether or not we address this, if anybody else agrees with me, an area that is fenced in for their dogs to run in, to go to the bathroom, to try to alleviate, the situation on the neighbor's property. I think we should look at, a text amendment in our code for any multifamily, that allows dogs that be part of the permitting process. Just to have that conversation at a later date.
I think that.
Great
makes sense.
idea.
We would look at, you'd have to be sufficient size for that to kick in though. I don't think that that number we'd figure out at a later date, but I think that this development is, I believe, of that size, well beyond that size. But I think it's a worthwhile thing to do if we put that.
Right. So my question to Steve is where the snow plowing took out whatever brush and small trees and stuff that was there, how wide of a space is that?
Oh, I would guess it's maybe 15 feet,
15 feet?
maybe 20 where they drove over some of the stuff, but I think the snow is basically pushed through about 15-foot wide space. It's basically where that asphalt is not, it's closest to our property. That was to their property.
Is it the area that looks like there's two larger trees, that's the area between those two?
Pardon?
There's two larger trees, like, it's where the driveway goes right next to near your property line, there's two. It looks like it's about 60 feet between two trees where there's an opening.
There's an aspen tree. In one spot,
I don't know what the other one.
I don't know what the other one is, but,
I think at one time there were a couple of bigger trees that were in there, but they were on the project side of the property line, and they took them down when they basically did the land clearing.
I guess I'm looking at it thinking it's probably closer to like 30 or 40 feet, but but I'm looking at it from an aerial and I don't always have the perspective you do on the ground.
Yeah, you could be right. I mean, the area that people are walking through, because when the snow is there, we're still walking along it. So if the snowplow is 15 feet wide, yeah, you could be looking at perhaps 30 or 40 feet where they walk through, where it's just low brush or just scrub understory, whatever you call it.
So Steve, I'm gonna ask you to come up here while I have, and look at my computer, please.
Sure.
So I know exactly where the issue is. So this is your property, and so it's when they're plowing here.
Right. Yeah. And basically, you can almost tell that there's a space between the property line that the GIS system has and the pavement. And here it's right up to, it's 5 feet off, or very close. to
Okay,
that.
so this is the gap where the snow plow is taking out whatever scrub.
Right, and I suspect what he's doing is he's making the slopes.
That's okay.
I suspect he's going from up here, he's pushing all the snow this way. he's
Sure.
Pushing all the snow this way, and because this is so close, and I think it was this tree here, I think it was one over here too. And then there's something down here, and he's just taking all the snow in here and all the snow here and just pushing it straight ahead. And so it ends up facing a big pile on the side of the property line. And the stone fences, here as I can figure, is probably just about down the same of the property line.
Okay. Okay. So hearing that testimony and it not being resolved between the two property owners, I would recommend that fencing be put up in that 20-foot gap. or that, trees are planted. At least, one or the other, but at least, probably 8-foot trees. To fill in that gap, one or the other, fence or trees.
I don't know what 8 feet, I think the bigger you go, the more likely you are to lose the trees. I do understand, they need to be substantial, so I think
6,
6.
6 foot. Um,
So just for clarification, that would be the 20 feet of fence. Or, trees planted to prevent trespass would be in front of the asphalt in front of unit 3.
I don't know,
Unit,
address would be 2539 on the GIS map, so if it's,
Okay. That's clear, that's better.
okay,
2539, you said?
yes.
Okay, Glen Lane.
Um. I would suggest then that we also, state in there as a condition that the dumpster cannot be filled beyond its walls. And so that there's less trash blowing around. This needs to be emptied more often. And there's not a whole lot that I can do, with trespassing, so I would suggest that, Steve and Mary, you put up signs on your property stating private property, no trespassing, whatever appropriate signage you think, that would help. Without a true delineation, and this is not in defense of anyone, but some people simply just don't know what property is what. I think, your comments about the stormwater plan are interesting, and because, of those new homes built up on Fieldcrest, I guess I would like to have that conversation with our DPW.
Sure, I can tell you that as those homes were built, we did talk to the builders, and Dan and I have met with them. They have designed it so the water pools at the back of the home, just north of Glen Lane. So it should not be running onto the Glen Road Apartments property. Was the way that it was designed. And they've only been there, 5 months, 6 months, so it's hard to
So
tell,
we gotta have a winter and a spring.
to see what happens with it,
And I do like the idea of having, some kind of fenced in area in that quadrant to the south. What a reasonable size is, I don't know. I no longer own a dog.
It's a good idea.
Dog parks are very common in large complexes, rental complexes in the cities. Because I know I have a granddaughter who lives in one and is very grateful for the dog park.
So we're gonna have 60 units.
We're adding 24 units to.
Oh, 72, excuse me.
Yeah,
Um,
Could we phrase it that they provide a dog park and if this detriment is not large enough, they have to enlarge it?
No, because putting up a fence is. You don't wanna do that twice. Right?
Yeah, we would wanna know what you're looking for as far as size. We certainly won't wanna go back and do that.
Units, you got a lot of thoughts. The dog park is 300 by 200, the fenced in area, roughly.
Ours?
I think that's bigger than what we should ask them to.
Oh, yes, yes, yes.
think there's probably a minimum practical size, no matter how big it is, because you can't scale it down to one unit and have it be a 5x5 fenced in area.
Okay,
Joel, have you built those elsewhere that you would have some idea on what is needed on that property?
No, we haven't done a dog park. What if, in that southwest corner, we've got quite a bit of real estate. What if we put some signs designating, a dog walk area, maybe get like an old hydrant or something, and mow a small area and see how that goes, just cause you put a fenced in area, is there any guarantee that somebody's gonna put their dog in there when they could be out running around?
you're supposed to have your dog on a leash in Sister Bay?
We'll have a dog leash everywhere, but if your dog was on a leash, they probably wouldn't be here.
I'm just on, I think it's Ann Arbor, Michigan, recommendations and guidelines for dog park. And I'm just scrolling through. See if there is something. I don't really see anything here. I do not know what would be appropriate. 20 by 30, 20 by 50, 30 by 40.
I was thinking 50 by 50 at a minimum, thinking like maybe 75 by 75. I mean, we're talking about putting a fence. It's not constructing a building. I mean, we don't need something that's as big as ours, but we need something that's big enough for people to actually use.
Well, for the dogs to run.
Yeah.
They have to have some space to run around. Hundred by 100.
So I think we should say square footage, let them figure out how they want to configure it, because really it's gonna matter, square footage doesn't matter.
Would you be willing to, leave it open-ended that per their landscape architect? Who specializes in design?
No. Unless we create it.
Unless they come back to us and say, this is what let's put it in here as it is, and say, if you have a question that comes back and say, no, you guys are wrong, or we think differently, then let's change it. But just to say that, oh, if you think differently, you're not having control on it, that burned us.
100 by 100's awful big.
Boy, if you have 72 units and every one of those units has one dog, that's a lot of dogs.
But but I don't think they're all gonna be in there at the same time. That would never happen. Somebody would be like, no, my little dog is not going in
No,
there.
I didn't mean they would all be there at the same time, Denise. But I guess what I'm saying is, you have to have a space large enough to accommodate probably maybe as many as 10 dogs at a time. And, it should be made so that it accommodates them.
$5,000 square feet. I'm throwing numbers up just to start. So Ron, you're saying 10,000 square feet.
So if you would have 10 dogs out there at a time. Seeing that we're doing this on the fly, I would be more comfortable making it smaller till we do our research. At 5,000. I don't wanna overdo and add a big expense for something twice the size. I mean, fencing it. Will we allow chain link for a dog? Will we allow that in the code?
I think so. I'd have to-
Yeah, it is, because we
Yeah,
did that.
dog.
years ago, when the dog park was created.
Okay, all right.
Mhm.
So I found this, I searched, dog park design guidelines. And it says, what is the ideal size for a dog park? And it says between a half acre and 1 acre. Size, the recommended minimum size for dog parks varies considerably among cities, but is generally between half acre and 1 acre. Buffer from residential. It says a few cities provide definitive distances from residences varying from 50 to 200 feet, which isn't an issue here. So it's basically saying a half acre to 1 acre.
So half acre,
8,000 square.
20,000 square feet, and we're talking about one complex.
That's a lot.
That's a municipal dog.
Yeah, that's what it is.
I know.
Apartment complex said.
No, I'm saying
Yeah.
nothing close to that, so I think
Say this is-
5,000,
5,000 square
be
feet.
fair.
Already fair, yes.
yeah.
Yeah, we can start there.
And if you come back to us and say, this is the research that we've done, can we do 4 or something else? We can have that conversation.
I think we ought to really add that to requirements. And new
Yes.
development.
Yes,
And have time to figure out sizes.
Right. Yeah, but we're just talking now. Thank you. Okay, so we've addressed the dumpster. The trespassing, snow plowing. 20-foot fence or 6-foot trees. The fenced-in area. And because that's where the sewer and water is, we can't get trees there. It's really a shame. Any suggestions from commission members?
The issue is screening the view from the occupant looking out, right?
I'm thinking this is the.
You put a fence there, they're gonna see over the fence.
Right,
That doesn't,
it doesn't help.
It's not gonna help the second story at all,
no.
because if you stand behind Shopko, you're looking at those apartments. It is an ugly view for those apartments to have to look at all of that junk back there, because there's dumpsters and there's all kinds of cardboard and everything. So they should do that.
I think there's not so much we can do on this property, really, if there's ever a change of use in the other property, that's where we can really address it.
Yeah, if it was. Out front, we'd have more teeth, but because it's behind a building and you can't see it from. From the road.
Okay, so the other issue then is the access, the 42.
Okay, and you came up with wording for that?
Well, my recommendation is, not require access to 42 at this time. Until the village has time to meet with the DOT and the 4 property owners. And if it is determined that an access can be provided to Highway 42, At that time, they shall provide access from the development to the highway. And then just, we'd also add that little ditty of what that Dan wanted, about contacting him when they're putting in storm water, or connecting to storm water.
You guys have any questions from the conversation and things that we've added?
Oh, I don't think so. We probably just, maybe if Julie, if you could just sketch, or the gentleman could show us where. I'm not sure what this 20-foot gap is, so
Sure.
if we could just figure that out, we can follow.
Well, here, come up and I'll
We can
show
do
you.
that. I'm sure the gentleman can. point it
I know,
out.
but if I tell you as plan commission chair,
Perfect.
I think that. It's right here. Yes. Another comments, suggestions, changes, additions?
Looking at the aerial, I see that there's some rocks that are lining the it's part of the roadway there, the internal access for the apartments. Is that something else we should ask for to make sure that that plow doesn't come through again, or do we just trust that that fencing with trees will take care of it?
I think that would stop it. I mean,
If,
he's gonna have to, he's gonna have to mark his trees until they get big enough, I would think, because he's not gonna want to fall taking them out. Because he knows we're gonna make him just go out there and buy new trees and plant them again.
But what's gonna happen for this winter?
Well, our code would give them until July 1st to actually plant. Actually, that's not true. It's gonna give them until the end of their development agreement. So you're right. If he opts not to put the fence and instead of opts to plant the trees, there's gonna be an issue this winter.
Yeah,
will you
So we
guys
should
address
have-
that, please?
Yeah, we'll see if we can get some snow fence temporarily put up and then talk to the plowing folks and. Maybe for a sign or something, you know, going and talking. Plowing at 2 in, but we'll see if we can put something up to. Stave us.
Right, he just has to change the direction on which he's,
Probably, yeah, something like that. It's probably a conversation with the plow.
because I don't want to hear from Julie that Steve called this winter. And there's a problem. And
I missed it.
I said, I don't want to get a call from Julie saying that Steve called and there's an issue still.
It all flows downhill. I'm at the bottom, so I'm right there with you.
Okay. All right, Janelle, do you have it written?
Yep. Okay. So we've got motion by, second by, that the plan commission approves the site plan, the building elevation drawings and floor plans, the driveway plan, the parking plan, the lighting plan, the grading and utility plan, the erosion control plan, and the erosion control detail sheets, as well as the site detail sheets and the landscaping plan and landscaping detail sheets for the 2 12-unit apartment buildings representatives of Premier Fieldcrest would like to construct on parcel 181000073 12811A3 as presented, but amended at this meeting, and authorizes the village administrator to see that a related conditional use permit is issued in as timely a fashion as possible. The following conditions shall be included in that permit. And then there's, I don't have it exactly as Julie worded it, but it's her wording about the access. Then construction dumpsters shall be on site and refuse managed to ensure that no garbage goes onto adjacent properties. Fencing must be,
No, that they cannot fill the dumpster.
there's another condition about that.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Okay, fencing must be installed in the 20-foot gap in front of the building located at 2539 Glen Lane, or 6-foot trees must be planted in that location. The garbage dumpster for the development cannot ever be filled beyond its walls, and if necessary, additional garbage pickups shall be scheduled. A fenced-in dog park that is 5,000 square feet in size must be created in the south quadrant of the previously mentioned property. Prior to the time that work commences on the installation of any sewer and water lines for the new buildings, the village's director of Public Works must be contacted and his directives must be complied with.
I wanted to say, I'll make the motion, but I'd like it to say no smaller than 5,000 square feet.
No smaller than, okay.
A minimum of 5,000 square feet. Okay. All right, motion by Bell,
Second.
Second,
second by Hart. There's a delay with you, Marge. You're never gonna get to second tonight.
my heart is broken.
I know. All those in favor respond with an aye.
I,
Aye. Carried. Thank you.
So on the same project, so you just approved the conditional use permit. So then what we would want to see you do is actually make a recommendation to the board to approve the development agreement next week. Or I'm sorry, yes, next week. Because our schedule is a little goofy, we can do it this month. The development agreement would have to be amended to reflect those items we just talked about.
Well, so on page 26, line 20, a zoning permit authorizing construction shall not be issued until proof of access or access denial has been submitted. We already have that, so that needs to be changed. Plus everything we just added here. And so then you will have 2 plan commission members at the board meeting to make sure that it reads correctly. If our other 3 members trust us enough and want to recommend it to the board tonight, not seeing those changes.
So it'll be the development agreement reflecting the changes that were just.
Right. Right. Do you not feel comfortable with that, seeing I'm not hearing a motion?
Don't move.
Well, that was kind of begrudgingly.
Don't move.
Motion by Kane.
Second,
Second by Smucker. Yeah,
Way to go, Marge.
all those in favor respond with an aye.
I,
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Okay. All right. Item number 7, conditional use permit development agreement for the mobile food vendor court at 10563 Country Walk Lane.
Joel, just real quick, I'll contact you guys tomorrow to go through everything. But it'll be on next week's board meeting.
Okay. Thank you.
Hey, so Mike Motsian, we reviewed this, as you know, a couple of months ago. He actually applied in May. We discussed it before the public hearing, had that public hearing in September, had changes after that. We're hoping that we can actually, now that, we held a public hearing on some text amendments, which kind of reaffirmed the direction we want to see food courts going. That actually goes to the board next week. So what we're hoping we can do is actually move this forward so he can have this ready for spring and perhaps approve the conditional use permit pending the approval of those text amendments, and then also do the development agreement pending the approval of the board action on the text amendments and the conditional use permit. If we delay it again, or if we don't approve it this month, that means it goes to the board in January. So we can move it along. I think it's ideal to allow him time to develop it properly and have it open in time for Memorial Day. So a year is a long time to hold up a project. No fault of ours or Mike's, it's just that that's along the process, because it was our first mobile food vendor work. So, I put the history in here for anyone who's concerned. I know we had some neighbors that were concerned about it. I wanted to make sure it was very clear in the record, the steps that we had taken. If you go to page 50, you'll actually see the action item that, would summarize everything to get us to this point. The conditions you see on page 50 and 51 reiterate everything we've spoke of previously being a condition, and those items that we wanted addressed the last time that he has addressed in the plan before you. Specifically, real quick, it was just that we wanted to make sure that he had a revised site plan, lighting plan, and a lot of times we say you have to have that stormwater plan before the permit is issued. In this case, we said we wanted to actually see it before it went to the board, so they did do that. All of that's in there. Lots of data provided by the engineer on the stormwater
Oh,
runoff.
my gosh,
Yeah, well, they're being very thorough. They're being very
they
thorough.
were very thorough.
They're giving us what we wanted. I think they've demonstrated that they have done everything we've asked them. I think we are by putting 43 conditions on their, 43 is not right. The numbering is goofed up on the staff report, but 21 conditions on them. I do believe that we will have addressed the neighbors' concerns while ensuring compliance with the code. So unless there is something different, you know, staff is in the position that this should, you know, provided the committee's okay with it, that they should probably approve it pending board approval of the text amendment.
I
That
have a
would be
question.
Part of it.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Marge.
Okay, Mr. Tomasian has said that there will be someone on the premises during the hours that the food truck court is open. Is there an office for this person? Where will they be located?
I can answer that. So, on the site plan, you do see a building. Mike has been going back and forth on some plans for that. I have seen one rendition where it is, an office, there's restrooms and then the office, basically on a second floor. So he has been, going back and forth between different plans that fit that footprint that's on the plan that would provide for an office.
Oh, well, I
I
didn't
thought he
see
was
it.
moving this building back there and adding bathrooms. How do we approve a plan?
Yeah,
The structure is going to change.
Well, the building that he has on here, he has a building drawn on there. That doesn't necessarily mean that is that storage shed, 'cause that storage shed is gone.
I know, he talked about moving it back and putting bathrooms on the back of it.
Yeah, that building does have to be revised to accommodate the UDC code. So he's gonna have to do lighting in there, insulating in there, plumbing in there. And that is one of the designs he had. He had another one which showed a second floor office on there. It can't, I mean, we can require it be one story. We've never really looked at the building.
I know, so how do we approve a plan? when
Yeah.
We don't have a plan for the building.
Yeah, we should look at the building. If there's gonna be a building.
I don't know how we do that.
Well, I think if the building is different than shown as on this plan, I think it needs to come back.
but the plan very clearly says that that building is bathrooms.
Mike, can you address that? Because I know there's a or mechanical room in there too, is what you had talked about. It was more than just.
Doesn't say that.
Yeah, so, right on the site plan, it says we got a bathroom house and office area, outlined there as I think it's a 16 by 32 foot. And it says new construction, and that is because we moved the existing building off. And there's concerns, questions about whether it's commercially viable to move back on site and use in this manner, so. We earmarked the same footprint for it, it just might be slightly different.
You're gonna have to
style.
come back.
Yeah, but
We can't approve that.
isn't this all to get approval to do the food truck court? Then I go to the architect and say, okay, we got approval. Draw the building with all the goodies. You're gonna obviously look at the building
with the bathrooms, with the hand sinks or whatever. And you're gonna say, yeah, that building fits the 16 by 32 footprint, because we can't go bigger, or whatever, let's say it's 18 by 20. You're gonna approve that building, but that building is for another phase. We don't even have approval to do it, and I'm spending all this money on engineering and stormwater, but you haven't said, yes, you can do the food truck court.
Well,
And
I didn't
normally-
mean that we would hold you up tonight. I'm just saying that, yes,
Of course you're gonna-
we can approve this, but you will have to come back for the building.
Oh, yeah, you're gonna get a full plan on like a building that you look, so you show. I mean,
That was
this is
just
like,
never made clear.
You know,
Yeah, don't show us anything like that.
so, yes, in the future, I'm gonna say,
And-
okay, finally got approval to do this. Go to the architect, say, we got a footprint here, how do we maximize that by giving them 2 bathrooms, baby changing stations, water fountains? You'll say, well, that looks really good, you could do that building, it's still gonna fit its parameters. I just don't know if I could bring that building back and put it on there. If I can, that's the option, obviously, that's be great if I can. But if I can't, and it doesn't give me the office or then we're gonna build a new one with all the state approved,
So Mike, just to be clear, the building footprint would not be greater than what you're showing us on the plan.
I say no, it'll be that size, but the question I had for Skylar, which we don't know yet, is what is the largest footprint that doesn't mess with this? Is it 16'6"? I just wanted to know we didn't know that yet. Like, what is the size that does not mess with this? Is it a foot wider? Is it skinnier? I might even do a smaller one. I just didn't know what that footprint was. And if it's the same.
What is the green space calculation on this project,
We're-
Skylar?
We're way over, we're well within requirements on that. We are at. We provide 45%, we only need 20%, so we've got oodles of space to use up. From a setback perspective, there's setbacks to the food trucks, otherwise all other setbacks are met. So
Skylar, I know the concern for me would be if you go larger, that's gonna mess with the stormwater plan.
we
And
have a
that's
lot of
like-
extra capacity built into it, so I'm not worried about that. It would alter the calculation slightly, but it's not a worry from a capacity standpoint.
I have another question. How can we approve the plan for the food court if we're not approving bathrooms?
Actually, your conditions talk about how he has to have restrooms on site and he has to have hand washing stations.
But he
all of
just
that.
said that building might not be the same.
Well, what he's saying is, I'm gonna have the building there. This is the location, these are the dimensions, but I wanna come back at a later date with the actual architectural design, because I don't wanna waste the money on the actual architectural design until I know I can do this. But his intention is to do it in this location, this size, as he's shown on the plan. The site plan part of it.
Let's say we approve this. He doesn't put up the building, he can't operate the food court, is that correct?
Correct.
And Skylar, what were the dimensions again, please, of the building?
16 by 32 is what we have currently called on, that was.
based on the building that was there.
Yep.
I met with Keller Construction today, and in order to do like the 2 handicap bathrooms, baby changing, their footprint was like 18 by 36 or something. It was like a few feet bigger, smaller because of the distance of the walls. We didn't even draw anything yet. We were just checking it out. I had texted him, what's the largest footprint? It's going to be within that space. It's gonna be a foot or more right there. It can't be any larger, but we're just trying to get the bathrooms and an office in there.
So right now you're at 512 square feet.
I believe, isn't it 16 by 32?
Yeah, that's what.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, 16 by 32 is what's on.
And 18 by 36 is 648. So. What we could say is not to exceed 700 square feet. Which gives them dimensions to play with. For fitting, because ADA bathrooms have to be a certain size. You want them back to back, you want the plumbing to work. So is a maximum of 700 square feet. In this.
Does that
approval.
include 2 stories then?
No, that's just the footprint, Marge.
Okay, thank you.
Is that reasonable?
A footprint of 700 square feet seems reasonable to me.
Reasonable.
And final design needs approval of the plan commission at a regular meeting, right?
Yep.
Yep.
Marge, did you hear that?
Say that again?
Final design would require approval of the plan commission at a regular meeting.
Thank you.
Well, it cannot exceed 700 square feet, you said?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, what motion, what recommendation do you want first, Julie?
Okay, so we would want to make a motion to approve the conditional use permit pending approval of the text amendments, subject to the conditions mentioned herein.
You also need approval of those plans. That's what you've been doing in the past. Or not?
Yeah, we didn't start doing that until the last meeting, so if that's how you want to do it, is approval of the plans. I mean, that's what you just did on the last conditional use permit. I mean, to me, it's a given, you've reviewed them, you've approved them, but you could do it that, do you want to read it that way, Janelle, and have them make a motion on it?
Sure. This is gonna be kind of a long one, or do you just wanna look at your staff reports for all the conditions? Or should I read it?
I think you just look at the staff report, that's why we said
Yeah.
conditions.
You don't have to read the 21
Okay.
conditions, but what's the rest of the motion?
That
How is that?
Okay, that the plan commission approves the site plan, the utility plan, the grading and erosion control plan, the stormwater management design plan / report, the landscaping plan, the lighting plan, and the conceptual renderings for the mobile food vendor court Mike Tomasi would like to create on the property that is located at 10563 Country Walk Lane, and authorizes the village administrator to see that a related conditional use permit is issued in as timely a fashion as possible.
No, just scratch that time.
It is,
Just-
okay, is issued, take that out, okay,
Pending approval of the text amendments before the board.
okay. Pending approval of related text amendments. By the village board. Okay, then I've got, the following conditions shall be included in that permit, and then I list all 28 of them. In addition, or 22 of them, and then 23 is the building that will eventually be placed on the previously mentioned lot cannot exceed 700 square feet in size. And the design of that building and the architectural features of it must be approved by the plan commission.
700 square foot footprint.
Okay. So the building, this is the footprint of the building, how about that? That exceeds 700 square feet in size, okay.
Are we good with that? Somebody care to make that motion?
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Bell. I'll second.
I was waiting for Marge.
All those in favor respond with an aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried.
Okay, so then the second one would be approval of the development agreement. With the addition of the items mentioned tonight. Provided the conditional use permit is approved as board.
So-
Because they have to approve, they have to actually approve the conditional use permit before you do a development.
I will make that motion.
Second.
Motion by Berto, second by Kane. All those in favor respond with an aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed. Carried. That's that.
That's that.
Go build, Mike.
Thank you.
Well, I gotta get the
Design,
plan,
go design.
go design the plan.
Yes.
Sure, don't wanna see the idea.
I'm positive. You might change it 8 times before you come back.
It's really good looking.
No, you'll change
Don't
it.
do it
Mike.
to yourself, don't do it. Hold it off. Walk out of here while you're ahead. We'll see you again.
Next week, right?
Yes.
I do have to commend you for your thoroughness, Skylar.
Thank you.
He's blushing.
I thought he was showing off. Hey, look at my section.
I'm continuing to scroll. It's just never ending.
Yes, it's never
Okay.
ending.
Page
Page
176.
176.
No, I should have just asked somebody. Yeah, I'm there now. Okay. Agenda item number 7C, draft text amendment, chapter 66, telecommunications.
So as you know, we have a moratorium until we could get this figured out, what we wanted to proceed with. And, Janelle had incorporated the Denise gave us a model ordinance, Janelle incorporated it, we went back and forth. I took a crack
Not at
at,
this committee.
pardon me?
This committee never looked at it.
We came here a couple times, but then we didn't.
Right,
When
Yeah.
you said it went back and forth,
I brought it here
Oh,
and then said,
Nothing
let's revise
happened.
it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It came a couple times.
all right.
So finally got it cleaned up. Ron had volunteered to review it. He met with me. There were a couple things that were redundant in there. We cleaned those up. This is the final product that we are recommending to the committee for consideration. Any
Question.
questions?
Okay, page 181. Waivers. Requests for waivers from any requirement of this section shall be made in writing to the administrator. The administrator may grant a request for waiver if it is demonstrated that blah, 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 blah. And there's multiple places in here where it's kind of an over-the-counter permit.
Yeah, I don't know, but like I said, it was based on that model ordinance, so.
And the because of the village's history with administrators, I'll say this as nicely as I possibly can. I do not want the end all be all authority lying with an administrator.
You know, I think that's fair. I mean, these are some pretty big things. Maybe they do need plan commission approval. You know, these are things that you have to plan ahead and there's no reason why they can't come before the plan commission. So, like I said, this is based on the model ordinance. I'll be honest with you, I'd prefer not to give the waiver on those. I prefer to go to the plan commission.
So I think the application should just come to the plan commission. I think we should know what's going where. And then the public is much more aware if, you know, a neighbor is putting one up or something. So I guess I would want to see all those instances changed because we had an administrator who allowed in a single family residential district to put a garage in front of the house, which is against zoning. Because it didn't come to plan commission. So we were all unaware that it had happened. I think this is just too important.
So the way it is right now, the only time it wouldn't come, so the waiver says it go to the administrator, we'll change that to say plan commission. The only time it would not come to the plan commission is if the site, if the wireless telecommunications site is already mounted to existing buildings, towers, utility poles, water towers, light standards, or other structures, and there's no changes made to the height of the structure, no panel antenna shall exceed 72 inches in height and 24 inches in width. And no addition antenna shall exceed 3 times in diameter. That's the way the model is written to say, if that's the case, you don't need a public hearing.
What does that mean, 3 times the diameter? Maybe 3 feet?
3 feet, I'm sorry, did I say times? I'm sorry. So if the dish is greater than 3 feet in diameter, it goes to the plan commission. If it exceeds 72 inches in height and 24 inches in width, it'll go to the plan commission.
Can I make a suggestion on that?
Sure.
60 inches for height. And 18 inches in width, because I'm like, those are some big antennas you're talking about there, look at that big.
You said 60 and 18, Nate?
16, 18, yeah.
Or do they all go to the plan commission? You know,
You, at some point, it's a smaller antenna, and it's like. Think about what, if you look, you go up there and you look at what's on the water tower, and you look at what's on with the Lundquist tower. You don't see the antennas on the water tower, they're there,
Right.
but the ones on the Lundquist tower are bigger than those dimensions. I think some of them might even be within the 72 by 24. You're talking about, that's. Yeah, that's like 12 square feet of window, it's a big antenna going on a substantial structure.
So 16 by 18 inch?
60 by 18,
5 feet by 1.5 feet.
Okay.
shrinking it down, making it.
Yep. Okay,
Everything else says that it goes in for a public hearing,
okay.
I think.
Well,
Let me, I'm sorry.
oh, no, you have to finish. Okay.
But just to make sure everybody understands, there are still things that are completely exempt as well. Those are on page 177. Installation of a small wireless facility on the strand between 2 utility poles. Installation of a mobile cell facility, the cow, the cell on wheels, like you wheel out
Right.
for like fall fast. Placement or modification of a wireless telecommunication facility on structures owned by or under the control of the village. Modification of an existing wireless telecommunication facility that makes no material change to the footprint of a facility or to the surface or subsurface of a public street if the activity does not disrupt or impede traffic in the traveled portion of a street, and if the work does not change the visual or audible characteristics of the wireless telecommunications facility. So those are things that are automatically exempt. And then when you go into that one where no public hearing is required, which says if you're over 60 inches and 18 inches, you would go to the public hearing, and everything else has to go through a public hearing.
How do we define emergency for the cow? Cause I think that we've only had one declaration of emergency that I'm aware of since I've been on board. And that lasted for a year.
The COVID?
Yeah.
Right. Would the village actually have to declare an emergency?
I think we I don't know, let's say something goes down here and they lose communication and Chris needs something. I'm not saying it would happen, but as an example, when you bring in a cow, that's not a village emergency, but it's an emergency. Maybe it's an emergency declared by the village or department they're in. I mean,
Cows have stayed up a long time in certain situations.
well, I think that's what we want to avoid.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think this might expose us to some of that, because,
I thought it said as soon as the emergency was over, it had to be removed.
but how do we define, my question is, how are we defining emergency? If it is, my emergency is my tower fell over, well, that's kind of an emergency, but do we really want to let it sit there indefinitely? I wonder if we want to have some sort of approval mechanism that's up there for more than 30 days. If it's up there for more than 30 days, it should come to the village board and say, okay, yeah, this is really an emergency, yes or no.
I think, not Yes, but I think we also need to define what emergency or event qualifies. Event as declared by the village, emergency declared, because it says emergency or event, what is that, a
So let's just say somebody wanted to bring,
graduation party?
if they want to bring a cow to Fall Fest. That'd be awesome. Cell phones would work, that would be a big thing for.
And we did talk about that last year.
Yeah, that'd be great. And I think that if we look at that 30 days, if it's here for more than 30 days. We should have it get approved at the next village board meeting. Next regularly scheduled, just so something doesn't stay out there and we don't have it in perpetuity.
So it can still say emergency or event, but anything beyond 30 days will require a permit.
Yeah, or approval or however we want.
Or
Yeah, we
approval.
need some mechanism.
I think you still have to define emergency or event though. So, emergency declared by the village. Or one of the departments they're in, an event maybe is what we use for it, something with a festival event.
Or do we even want to say the event, and we want to say if you want to have it up for less than 30 days, go ahead and do it, because people aren't, I mean, like, these things are tens of thousands of dollars to rent.
So village declared emergency. Or something in
Temporary use, I mean, like, that's what. Somebody's not going to go for fun, go put up a cow, and they're not gonna go buy it and spend all the money and deploy it, and
Where do they have anything around here like that? Is there anything right now or no?
Well, when the lady from Bertram came and talked to us, she said that they could get us one for Fall Fest. So. I must.
I mean, the nearest one is probably gonna be Celcom. I think they've got a cow, they used to deploy them around the Packer games, but they got more permanent infrastructure now.
I mean, is a normal resident gonna be doing that?
No,
No,
Okay,
Could it be a local, state, or federal emergency or village event?
SBA/village event. Village, state, or federal, yeah,
yeah, that worked.
that's good.
If it is to exceed 30 days, it requires plan commission or board approval.
I think that one should go to, I would like to say it goes to the next regularly scheduled board meeting that's over 30 days. So potentially it could be 59 days before it goes, if it was timed just perfectly. Or I suppose longer if we didn't have a village board meeting, but that's on the village end.
Good catch.
So on page 181 still, line 50. So C, avoids placement of above ground facilities and underground areas. Installation of new support structures or equipment cabinets in the public right of way. Or placement in residential areas when commercial areas are reasonably available. Is it avoids all of those things? Because my question is, it's avoiding installation of new support structures or equipment cabinets in the public right of way. I just didn't know if avoid, is it applying to each of those statements after the comma?
You have to repeat things where you're looking.
Line 50, page 181.
I guess I'm not following what avoids placement of above ground facilities in underground areas. That doesn't make sense to me.
It didn't make sense to me, but I figured it's just something I want to understand.
I guess what my thought process is if you can put it underground, you can have a vault in the ground, put it there, don't have it above ground. That's maybe the gist of what that's saying, and that makes sense to me.
What if it say avoids placement of above ground facilities in areas where underground facilities are already installed?
Or I would even say are feasible. Because even if it's not installed and it's a new placement, if they can put it under the ground, that's gonna be. I mean, think about what the utilities were like in downtown. It looks great, but we heard about the green boxes.
And then we didn't. Right?
Yeah, eventually. But if we can avoid that, and there was no way to avoid that.
Right.
There is for most of the facilities that are going on now. I mean, if you look at what's happening going on 57 and down on Old Stage. Putting the underground, that's where all the fiber is gonna come in there. So it doesn't have to be above ground. Other people do put it above ground, but it doesn't have to be.
I think this should just be changed to say avoids placement above ground.
I think I would just say where underground is feasible, because it's not. There are times where if you're directly on an exposed bedrock, it might be,
You might not be able to.
yeah, it might not be feasible. I mean,
I just didn't know if this, after the comma and the word installation, is it avoiding installation of new support structures? Is this all avoids every statement here?
Yeah, the way I read it to say
Okay,
is.
because I wasn't clear on,
That's why I read it. It's
Okay.
avoiding everything.
okay.
So it needs to say then, instead of or, it should say and. Avoids placement above ground where underground is feasible, installation of new support structures or equipment cabinets in public right of way. And avoids placement in the residential area. But that would make it more clear.
More clear.
Did you say that the no panel antenna shall exceed 5.5 feet in height with 12 inches in width? Is that right?
60 inches by 18 inches.
60 by 18, okay.
On page 183. Line 15. All freestanding monopole towers shall comply with the following minimum property line setbacks. Front yard or street yard shall be at least the distance equal to 3/4 of the height of the tower or the setback required for the underlying zone, whichever is greater. And then we get to side or rear yards in residential zones shall be at least 50 feet for towers less than 60 feet in height and 100 feet in towers equal to or greater than 60 feet. And what if it's what's of a 200-foot tower and now they only have to be, why wouldn't it just simply be all the same? 3/4 of the height of the tower of the setback. Period.
Okay. This is the way it was written. I
Is that
mean,
what you're
I
saying?
know Nate has talked about they don't fall over anymore, they collapse in place.
Yeah, I mean, that was my kind of a rant about 125% fall, but this is addressing that, and it's not doing like 25% fall. I think it was talking about jumping towers never jump.
Right, right.
I mean, it could be, it shall be at least a distance equal to 3/4 of the height of the tower, but not less than the required setback for that zoning district.
Because I don't think it makes a difference whether it's the front yard, the rear yard, the side yard, when you're putting up a tower. I would agree. Okay.
If it falls, if there's a problem, it doesn't matter whether it's,
Oh, I don't care if it falls or not.
I mean,
per
why would it
se.
be different
I'm
than a
just
side
talking
versus a
about,
rear?
right, the neighbor's visual impact. And it probably wouldn't even be so much the neighbor right next door. It's gonna be the neighbor 3 doors down that's gonna see it visually more
Then the one
Then the-
right next door.
than the one right next to it. what do they call that? The,
Site, if you will. You shed,
Interestingly enough, that the model ordinance reads the same as the old ordinance on that. Okay, so that one would be 3/4 the height of the tower, but not less than the required setback, is that correct?
whichever is greater. For everything.
Including road setback.
But see, right there then on Nate, though, it does say that on line 28D, all other towers in residential zones shall provide a setback from any property line that is at least equal to 125% of the proposed tower height.
I thought we were gonna overlook, I would. Think we would want to have that same standard apply there, that 30 quarters or setback.
So wouldn't we just delete C altogether?
No, would you delete D altogether, wouldn't you?
Monopoles have a setback and then all up, so it's.
Oh, all other
monopoles?
towers.
No.
Okay, so you'd have to keep D. And just rephrase the same.
To say it is equal to 125. No, you're,
No,
75 is 3/4.
3/4 of the height of the tower or the setback of the underlying zone, whichever is greater.
So these can be put in the front yard or anywhere they want, as long as they meet the requirements for the setback.
It's not really gonna happen in the front yard.
Maybe.
You'd have to have a really big,
yeah, I guess if they met all the other requirements, they could. I think it would be pretty difficult, though. I shouldn't say that. I mean, I think they'd have to get plan commission approval to have it in the front yard. And I think we took out conditional use permit in here. I remember right. Oh, no, it is considered use. So it is something we have to allow. Right, it meets all the requirements. Yeah, I think if that's the only place they could bury it, if that's the only place they could locate it, I think we'd have to. Which would be
Put lights on it.
bad, yeah. I mean, I wouldn't.
As soon as you light it, you have to light it.
No, I need Christmas lights.
I know, but I'm saying, as soon as you put a light on a tower, the water tower, we have to keep that thing lit. Because we did it so many years ago.
But residential ones are not gonna be that gigantic.
Probably not. It'd be fun. I mean, I propose we put lights on the tower. Or they gonna laugh at me.
the house I grew up in, we had a, I don't know, 50-foot antenna for, old TVs in the 60s. And, my father built a star and he'd climb up there every year and put the big blue star on top of it at Christmas.
There was the blue harvesters in Door County, most of them had big
I got a better.
stars that were illuminated.
Oh, great.
We all stopped working probably in the 80s, but I mean, they just all on like a Bronchi.
Yeah,
and the ones
is it
that-
charged? Do you think? Yeah.
I still have it open.
Okay,
So that identifies what it is.
no, just did a decoration, just so you could see this
For Christmas.
for Christmas.
Okay, so the only thing that is changing in there then is C, which says basically, whichever is greater. And then D changes to 3/4 for the setback or whichever is greater, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, to address Laurel's concern, yeah, I think we would have it in a front yard if that's where somebody wanted it. Can we say that in a residential zone, there's a road setback? Like. height of the tower or something to avoid that?
In a residential zone, it.
Put closer to the house like those.
Actually, this is how I would interpret this. This is how I would interpret it. It says all other towers. Well, never mind. It says all other towers in. Yeah, this is interesting. So in a residential zone, it could be close. It says in. All other towers in non-residential zones shall provide a setback from any property line that is at least equal to the height of the tower, which would include your front yard, which would be your road setback. So those, a non-residential zone would offer that protection. But in a residential zone, they're not offering that protection.
So maybe in a, like for R1, the front yard setback is 70 feet from the center line.
Let's think about this, because you're gonna have sidewalks, you're gonna have trails.
And how many of these are gonna go up? I
Oh.
mean, if,
How many have been applied for?
Yeah,
Nonsense.
I'm not too worried about it.
That was one of the things I said. I said, I don't know if you really need to do this, but it's not gonna hurt anything, because nobody's applying for it anyway.
because it's more like north and rural compared to our little village, we've all got
Biggest,
adequate coverage.
the biggest threat I see is gonna be utility pole style towers that they came out there and, they tried to do it. They tried to do it right after we buried the lines. They wanted to put it right on 42 there. It's the biggest challenge we've got.
Well, we've heard rumors that by the highway garage, they're gonna replace it with a different tower. I don't know what kind, I don't know what size. That was kind of in the middle of nowhere, but let's say they had neighbors,
On 57,
yeah.
what do they have the 1211, so that would be a neighbor.
On the other side, I think that's vacant right now, but it could be a home at some point.
There is a significant issue of coverage in this portion of the village. Once you get under the bluff, where you are, you can get signal from all kinds
Yeah,
of places.
over there.
And once you get up above where I live, you're generally okay, but right down here. It's not good, and then also when you have a populated event like,
Oh, I know,
and
Paul must forget it.
so that's the wireless need I could foresee. it.
Right. You say in residential, it can't be in the front yard, period.
Sure,
I mean, R1 is, or that's the starting point. Whatever your front yard setback is, whatever zoning district in the R1 through R4, you still have to then go back even the 3/4, but it can't be in the front yard.
I think we just say not the front yard,
It's
otherwise
not
it's
the
gonna,
front
if it's on the side of it, it still could. It's the front yard setback would still impact what's on the side of
But
it.
if there's no house on there,
You still have a setback,
yeah, but your front yard is pretty minimal
70 feet,
from the center line.
From the center line,
Fif-
yeah.
50 from the 40 from the pavement.
I don't think that's very much.
Well, that's not, if there's not a building, you can't put a garage up without a house in that one.
Right. You have to have a principal structure.
It can't be a primary use.
Okay, so residential zone, you have a principal structure.
That's the same way of saying that this cannot be the tower cannot be the primary use. I'll remove that.
Okay. So that wouldn't be in here, that's more in the section that talks about what is allowed before a home. That's an easy change. Okay, well, why don't we just revise it and bring it back again next month?
I'm still. I don't like the aesthetic,
What page?
182. 22, line 22 starts there. I still question when you have something that's between 35 and maybe 100 feet, can you make it look like a tree? Yes. If it's like 190 feet, it looks way worse if you try and make it look like a tree than if you don't.
Yeah.
They
How
try,
tall is that one at the Lewis Harbor?
that's 80 feet, 70, 80 feet.
Yeah, anything taller than that is gonna look ridiculous.
I also think that we should just say, I don't know that we need to say that there needs to be a species native to the northern Door County Peninsula, because they're not gonna go down and replicate, the needle patterns and all that. That's not the point of it. The point of that camouflage is to casually glance at it and not notice.
That's why you want it to look like something you'd normally see here.
But I guess I think we're being too specific on that, because if you're talking about making somebody replicate a tree that's native to Northern Door County, I mean, they don't go out there, they'll say, okay, you can do a pine tree, you can do a deciduous tree for that. You're not picking the exact species on it. I think we're being too specific on that.
But I think we'd wanna make it clear, we don't want like a
Palm tree.
palm tree, redwood, monkey tree. I mean, that, it'd stick out more. It's not- And maybe it's just Wisconsin made, I just wanna make sure we don't end up, like you said, with a palm tree or something that's
But
really.
we still have to approve it. So we would not approve a palm tree.
I would hope not, yeah. I think Nate's saying, and he's got a point there, maybe it doesn't say Northern Door County Peninsula, maybe it's Wisconsin or Midwest United States or something.
Yeah. And maybe we say, or give them the out to say, okay, this is what we want it to be, a native to the Great Lakes region, or another camouflage that the Plan Commission will approve. Because we don't know what else they could come up with,
Right.
and there might be something else better than that we haven't thought about.
Well, we do go on to say they can do other types of things. So I think it would be tree whose species is native to the Great Lakes region, period. And then it goes on to say. When a location would result in a tree being incompatible on the landscape, as an alternative to a tree concealment, other disguises may be considered by the Plan Commission, such as church steeples, lighthouses, or other concealments. But then we have to address the one that you said, whereas if you get too tall, it's just gonna look stupid if you do anything.
Yeah. My house is gonna bring it down.
Yeah.
And on some level, these smaller towers are going to be less noticeable by not camouflaging.
True.
All depends on the height, the geography of the piece of property.
Yeah, I mean, like, if your sight line is looking back into the bluff, you're probably not gonna notice as much.
Right.
If you're looking out and sticking out there on the bluff, it's gonna stick out there. The size of the antennas are gonna matter. I mean, if you think about it, that Lundquist tower is, in my opinion, the ugliest tower in Door County because of the size of the panels, how they're placed, the lines that are on it. There's a lot of factors that go into that. And that's kind of what we've encouraged. We said, we don't want a bunch of towers in this building. We want as much stuff put on there. Let's put all of the crap in that little spot. So there's something to be said for, I guess, what I would advocate for is just giving the Plan Commission flexibility to say, okay, this is what we want. Our end goal is to not have towers be noticeable.
So, how was it, if concealment would be a distraction, would be a visual distraction as determined by the Plan Commission, the requirement may be waived by a 3/4 vote of the Plan Commission or something like that?
Let's make it 2/3, but yeah, that would.
Well, I say 3/4 because everything else we have is.
Everything else is
3/4.
quarters.
Okay.
Does that make sense to you guys?
Yep.
Try that. Anything else?
I'm sure when I reread it again next month, I'll find something totally different that I didn't see this time.
Ron, just real quick, you had one thing that we had talked about, and when I reread it, it made sense the way it was written, so I didn't change that.
I saw that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but did you reread it? Cause if you
Yeah.
reread it, it makes sense. So everything else I was a great catch and we changed, so.
And you're all good?
I'm good.
Okay.
I don't know why we're doing this, but.
Because we found it, because we have a model ordinance and we wanted it to be consistent, so.
Okay, agenda item number 17, marketplace parking lot and signage update. Julie, can I see Chris is here?
Sure, so, at the last meeting, I was told to, provide an update on the sign violation and the parking lot issues. So just real quick with the parking lot issues, Nate and I met with Chris. And we talked about the parking lot, we talked about alternative things to, provide parking, perhaps elsewhere. The decision was made that we would reach out to Randy, our council, and find out exactly what we are required to do by development agreement before we proceed any further.
Just to see where we stand and what he would advise.
Fair enough, that's how I read it, so, or that's how I interpreted it. And then the second part was, I did, remind Mr. Schmaltz that the sign that we're concerned with was in violation, the little part that's hanging down, and told him he did have to remove it. And he referred him to the letter from his attorney, which you do have. And then Denise had asked that I get a hold of him and let him know that if it is not removed by this meeting, that we would direct the Parks Department to go out there and remove the sign that's in violation. I noticed it's still there on my way to work. I think if we're gonna order a sign removed, we're probably better off, if it hasn't been complied with, referring it for legal action at that point. Whenever we have signs in violation and they don't comply, we try the citation route. If they don't comply, then we refer them to training. So, it's probably a better route than taking the sign down, because we'd have to trespass to take the sign down. Unless you.
No, you'd
order.
be on the sidewalk.
Well, his sign's not on the sidewalk, though. You have to step off the sidewalk actually onto his property for that sign.
I'm just not comfortable with the village doing that. Personally, I think that's too much. I think that we need to go through, follow the rule of law and go through the process and procedure to do
What
this.
was stated in the letter, though, it says that, we only gave them 1 day's notice to take it down. That is not true.
No, we gave him 30 days. We had 31, 32. We had a meeting. And we had said
2
it
months
had to
ago.
be down at the next meeting. And
Then we had the next meeting, Chris wasn't here, and the sign was still up.
Yeah,
And then
I
it was
think it was like
4
30.
days after that meeting, that the deadline that we had set expired. And then we met with Chris since then, and we, Chris obviously doesn't see it that way, but that was discussed briefly at that conversation, at that meeting. That was still not in compliance, and he said, well, he didn't see it that way.
All right, so then tomorrow write the citation and we'll let staff take it from there. Okay.
I guess one thing I'd want to add to that,
Mhm.
I would hope to have a closed session item for next month. After we get.
Randy's opinion. Okay.
So the citation, is that a motion or by consensus? Is your citation?
I don't think we even have to have consensus. The sign that is up is not what was approved. So that's just administrative.
Okay.
Agenda item number 7E, discuss floodplain management.
Okay, so you read the staff report. Basically, we need to adopt the floodplain ordinance and start following that program. And DNR is going to be drafting the model ordinance for us. and basic ordinance, nothing extra than what the state requires. And then we'll have to have a public hearing on that, adopt it. It'll have to go to the board. After we've adopted it, we'll have to, ask FEMA to join their NFIP program. I have administered a floodplain ordinance in the past, so this isn't that difficult. The biggest thing is that it is an expense for the property owner, because when they develop, if there's floodplain on the property, they're gonna have to have floodplain elevations done before and after. So they're gonna have to show us the elevation of the ground before they build. And then after they build, they have to verify the level of the lower floor, first floor, and fill 15 feet around the structure. So it does become a cost to the property owner. However, it's still cheaper than if they had to get flood insurance. So once I have that, do you want to see the ordinance from the DNR, or do you want it to go straight to public hearing?
I want to see the ordinance from the TNR,
Okay,
I'd like to see where the floodplain.
and I'd also like to see the map.
oh, sure.
Yeah.
The GIS map is updated with it, so, that is up there as well, but, okay. When I have it, we'll bring it back and, or not bring it back, we'll bring it here, and then from there, we'll decide what we're gonna do with it.
Okay, 7F, discuss parks maintenance, building, architectural design.
So one of the, just looking for some direction here. So we have an RFP out there to have an architect design it. They'll be getting back to us. And I know the question is gonna come, what do we, what does the design look like? What do we want? What is the side we want? And the Parks Committee had come up with some really good design ideas. I think we're also gonna see architects, I'm guessing, look to find something cost effective, like, should it be a block building? Should it be a concrete preformed unit? Should it be the insulated metal panels? And you can see right now in the code that we'd allow a decorative brick, but not a regular block. So my first question is, do you consider the block at the wastewater treatment plant to be architectural? I think most would agree it is.
But we should have had photos.
Yeah, I thought about that. There's also, hopefully everybody knows what it looks like.
I'd also like to see the design of the building.
I'm with you, Ron.
But what are we looking at? I have no idea what we're looking at.
But the design of the building, so an architect isn't gonna design it and then come back with the siding later.
No, but you have to have some idea. I don't even know where the building's going. I mean, it's never brought to the plan commission as to where the building's going. Unless I missed something.
No, it hasn't, because we haven't come in for site plan review or anything on that yet.
It may be going out in the woods somewhere where,
It
So-
will be somewhat visible, let's say.
but
So it all.
We don't have enough information.
Well, I will I'll email you guys a copy of the facilities plan that was adopted a while ago. I didn't realize you weren't following that process, or that you hadn't seen that. I can get that to you. As far as the building design, we won't have that until they design it, and they need this to design it. So,
They don't, they'll just have to redesign it if what they present we don't like. It's only siding, it's only a drawing, it's only a site plan.
I disagree with you. When an engineer is drawing it, if he's doing a stick-built building, that's one cost. He's gonna design it that way. If you come back later and say, oh, no, we want it to be block, he's gonna have to redesign that. There's structural elements and.
Siding
weight
just is, you just change the siding.
But if you're but that's just it. If you're doing it with a unit, that's a concrete unit is not siding. A concrete block is not siding. Metal panel is not, the insulated one is not siding. That is your wall.
What
So it's
what
not
does,
First of all, I think the direction could be, be, and we'll see if there's consensus on this commission, that we are not in favor of an all architectural block building. Correct? From ground to roof,
Probably not.
like the fire station here, we have the stuff on the bottom. We have the, can't remember what they call it now, it used to be the cement board, now it's re-sided with something else. So
So we don't care.
it's
what-
going to have at a minimum of 2 elements.
As far as what the appearance is, we don't care about what's, well,
We do care,
but not in this part.
right,
We just want something that's gonna, otherwise, we're gonna probably be in violation of some of our,
right.
just that many unbroken, that much unbroken space.
Okay, so we can tell them when they actually design it, no full block building. And we'll give the example of ground to roof. And we'll also say it has to have at least 2 elements. And tell them it does have to be architecturally compatible with other village buildings. Would you agree?
No,
It could be full block as long as it does, as long as it has something that breaks that up, or, I mean, it has an architectural detail that. You know, some sort of, gosh, the word is escaping me. Some sort of facade that's on the front of it, that,
okay, let me pass around the photo. Just going to take me a moment to find it.
With it being a village building or property, shouldn't it be something that's environmentally?
We would like to try to be LEED certified.
Okay,
It's, and that is a recommendation. But it doesn't mean that it has to be, but we need to try to achieve some of that certification as much as possible,
and then what is that cost involved?
a lot.
Okay, so the village is going to be paying for that.
Right.
So you have to manage people's money wisely.
yeah.
And that's why I think the architect is gonna try and keep cost in mind.
Okay,
This was an idea for a fire station, which is all block.
well, that's pretty, but oh
But
my
then
gosh,
it's
how much
broken
does
up
that
there.
cost?
Our building's not that.
That looks like from 1900 or something.
It's old.
Sometimes
Yes.
when you go for lease verification, you effectively get, then you don't get the same.
It is nice.
Significantly, this cost, I think that's a big one.
But I don't know that the village can afford this kind of architectural detail like they could at the turn of the century.
No,
So that's why I would say, even though this is quite lovely, we would not be able to afford or want to spend that kind of money on those components. So therefore, in my mind, ground to roof, all block is not viable. Oh, maybe, should I show you too?
Oh, I've seen that one, yeah. It's
I know, I
beautiful.
sent it to you.
Yep, that's beautiful.
Can you send it to me?
Oh, God, Marge. Do you have your phone right there with you?
I sure do.
Okay, ma'am.
Thank you.
So we do not allow concrete masonry units. We would hold fast on that and say, no, you can't have that, right? No. Although that is economical, we would not allow that. So we're gonna hold fast on that. We're not gonna allow regular block. They could use the architectural block as long as it wasn't full architectural block ground to roof.
This looks like the Taj Mahal. Couldn't resist.
So then the other one is the industrial metal panels. don't allow that, but now we did allow that with, Beacon Marine. Is that something we consider or not?
I think now that we've allowed it at Beacon Marine, I think we need to change the code.
And
I
are
think-
those environmentally friendly? Are they good for heat, for cold, for,
Maintenance.
maintenance? What's the longevity of that type of a building? Because if they look nice and they're gonna last a long time, that's a bonus.
They're a lot better than vinyl siding.
Oh, I
Yeah.
agree.
Thick? Maybe with that thick?
Cause I think that's gonna look nice.
Depending what they do, you know.
Yeah.
Well, we're not gonna approve anything that doesn't look nice, I'm sure, but they need some directive when. It's the Parks Committee who has to make a recommendation on whether or not to hire the architect. And they make that recommendation to the board. The Parks Committee hasn't dealt with architectural design, so. If they're reviewing RFPs and the architect is saying, I can build this building plan for this much, it is. I don't know, park board. Or something, which we would not allow, but I just wanna make sure. We have the guideline for the architect, so he doesn't go through and spend whatever, $75,000 designing a building of something we would have never approved in the first place. So we can give him some direction and see what he comes back with, but give him this direction we just talked about.
I asked Dan, and I don't have my note. And put it in my bag. What they had replaced here when they resided the fire station. And he called it something, and it's really low maintenance. It has a long lifespan. I would much rather go towards something like that than insulated metal panels, because
Denise, my concern with an insulated metal panel on that building, you have dump trucks coming and going if they back into it. Now, they say they don't rust like other panels, but I would think after repeatedly hitting it, it will dent and it will rust. That would be my concern on that type of structure.
I'm concerned with these trucks that are hitting the building.
Where did
I would prefer not to have that.
I think it depends on, it depends on how it's done. I think.
I just don't like the material, I just don't like I think there's better options. So many other options to choose from. And-
Denise,
and-
I have a question. Where did the picture you sent me? Where
Yeah.
did that come from?
New England,
Who?
the state of New England,
Oh, because it's really ugly.
we all thought
I'm
it was beautiful, a beautiful fire station.
It's ugly.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I must be getting old and crotchety, but that is ugly.
You've
I'm
always
sorry.
been crotchety.
Love your filter, Marge.
Well, why would I change now? Okay,
So, when you look at a lot of the public works, buildings that have been built, and a lot of the admin buildings that have been built, they are black or they're metal. And I think it's safe to tell them, we're not gonna approve that, that's not what we want.
Maybe not for an administration building, we have a whole different design. Kind of zeroed in.
You're talking about
that.
two different types of buildings
Right.
altogether.
Right, parks maintenance can be a little more utilitarian.
Yes.
It's not going, now granted, if we end up in some decade realizing the whole facilities plan, which is the sports complex plan and everything, and there's hundreds of people coming and going, out there every day. If we, depending upon where it's placed, which we don't know yet, on that site, will we want to screen it with trees, or will it be there out in the open for hundreds of people to see every day? So.
Well, when I meet with them, I am going to tell them then that, industrial metal panels will not be allowed. Concrete masonry units possibly.
Only architecturally. The architectural ones, not the flat block.
Well, no, I was saying concrete masonry units. Because before you guys said that we should change the code to allow concrete masonry units.
I didn't say that.
You guys just said that.
No, we were talking about metal.
Yeah, the metal
Okay,
insulated
so now,
panels.
okay,
That I was
so then
talking
I thought
about
you said, no, they shouldn't have metal insulated panels.
Beacon,
okay.
because we allowed it for Beacon.
We
We
should
need-
allow it.
We need to change the code.
Pardon?
But not for this bill, not for the parks bill.
Change code, but not for parts. Okay. Okay, well, I guess they'll have to come up with a design based on that. That's the best I can give them. And we'll see what they come up with.
That's more than we've ever given anybody else. Ever.
I just don't wanna waste money and have them do it over again, because we paid for it, you know. Okay, that's good enough. That makes me happy. So I feel better at sending that direction, so.
Okay, item 7G, discuss waiving fees for village projects.
So this one is, we want to bring this to the board if you're okay with it, but, you know, we have site plan review coming up for the Parks building, we have permitting on that. We have plat review coming up, on the Wiltsey property. Do we want to charge ourselves those fees, or do we want to waive it for the village projects?
We want to waive it for the village projects, but my question is, what fees exactly? And does this include any zoning permits that somebody that would not building permits?
Well, we can't waive the building permits like the electrical and stuff like that, because that's,
Right, it goes to Brett.
that goes to Brett.
So
So
I'm just
ours-
making sure that it's,
Clear that we wouldn't waive that. Yeah, no, my intent wasn't to waive Brett's because we can't, and he's gotta get paid for his time. This would be basically, when you look at the village fee schedule, any fee that we have that would apply to that project, that we would be charging we would not charge ourselves. Instead, that would be waived.
so for an example, the housing study, a house is built, somebody else has to pay for a zoning permit unless we are the general contractor.
I would agree, if we contract with somebody to build those houses for people, I do not think that, I think we should not charge ourselves. And I don't think that should be passed on to them because that adds to the cost of their home. However, if somebody wants to just buy a lot and build their own home, I think they should pay for that.
Or a developer
Or
builds, okay, all right, I just needed clarification on that.
The only thing
wanna-
I could see there is, so let's just say we come up with pre-approved plans, we could then we could then set that separately and say we can reduce the fees. Somebody has, say we come up with these 5 buildings that you wanna build, we sell somebody a lot and say, I'm gonna pick this one. At that point, we could say, okay, well, we're gonna waive fees appropriately, we can make that determination after we have the 5 approved buildings.
Yes, it's up to you guys. I was just thinking if it's a project that the village is administering, we don't charge ourselves. But if it's a project somebody else is doing, we charge. It's like let's say we're gonna work with a builder to build X amount of homes, certain size, etc. We'll have an agreement with him to do that. We're not gonna charge him for that. We're not gonna charge him for those permits because he's doing that as a service basically to us. He's our subcontractor to get these home built. But you don't like those plans and you have your own builder and you wanna buy a lot, but you wanna build your own home. I think they should be charged, because one, that plan hasn't been reviewed. The setbacks haven't been reviewed, the other ones, we've reviewed everything off and.
But that's what I'm saying like this would be. A lot of places are doing this pre-approved, like they come up with a couple buildings and a couple
Yep.
layouts, and they approve
I've done
those. So I'm saying. I'm asking if this would include that, or we'd have to come back and have that discussion at a later date.
Okay, so. I have done that when I was out in Oregon. Nate. What we did was we approved certain plans, not from a zoning perspective, but from Brett's perspective. So we came up with building plans that we knew the electrical and the plumbing was all gonna pass state code. And then those, we pre-approved them, so people didn't have to pay for an engineer or a design to do those, right? The plans that we would have a contractor do would be for the homes that we are offering people. If you're asking, could they take that plan and put it somewhere else?
No, that's not what he's asking.
No, it's okay, so it's right, you're saying that we would be the general contractor, we would build the houses, we would sell the house. I'm saying there's some middle ground there where we say, okay, well, we're gonna have 5 different kinds of houses that we're gonna put on these 2,500 square foot lot. The standard lot, we cut these same lots with the same dimensions, say, okay, well, you put it right here. This, we're approving everything from the plan commission perspective, we're approving these. You pick one of those 5. I believe we should waive whatever fees we possibly can, if it's something that we've already approved. They're not coming in there saying, I wanna build my specific thing, they're saying, we're gonna pick from these options you came up
Yes,
with.
yes, that's what we're talking, the same thing. What I was saying is, if somebody wanted to do it outside of the scope of, they wanted to use that house plan, but outside of the scope of our project and maybe put it down the road, no, they'd have to pay for that. If they're using the plans we come up with on the lots we created, they pick one of them, no, we would not charge them, is what I'm asking.
I don't think we should.
They're not gonna be able to come in with their own plan and put a house there, are they?
Well,
We
that's,
don't know yet.
that's
We
some-
haven't had those conversations.
yeah, I think that's something we would have to decide is,
Because if they're gonna do that, then I think they should have to pay those fees.
But that's what we're saying.
and that's what I think. so.
Okay, but on that property, not like, okay,
Yeah, that's what I'm,
Okay.
that's what I'm thinking is, if they do it outside of the scope of our project, they're on their own, but why would we charge ourselves?
and are you gonna make a requirement? Is the village gonna make a requirement of the square footage minimum and maximum? So even if they don't wanna use one of our plans, they could put something else in there that would, that footprint?
So that's something that the planning commission is gonna have to discuss, yeah. So we know kind of the minimums that people are looking for. We're gonna have to have the contractor design those. And then the commission is gonna have to decide, do we wanna have minimums, do we wanna have maximums? I think I'll be honest with you, if you're looking at small lots, and if you open it up to selling some of them, I think you probably do want maximums,
Yeah.
because you're really gonna dwarf and overcrowd these buildings.
And if you have a whole bunch of them that are single level, you don't want somebody that's gonna have a 2-story.
I
Because
agree.
it wrecks the whole look of it.
I agree. So I think we need to get through that housing plan and see what comes up with it, and then eventually we're gonna have to come up with. We're gonna have to amend our code to fit what the people want. And then I think we're also gonna have to amend the code to protect what is developed out there. But we're just not there yet.
Do you want a motion?
No, as long as it's consensus, I'm gonna put it on the board's agenda for next week to
Okay.
waive those, and I'll make it sound worded a little better.
Okay, so my question is, the next meetings that are on here. The land use plan, public input session. The next regular meeting and the housing study presentation, which is on Saturday, January 17th. When does the plan commission see the housing study presentation?
So the housing study, has to go to the board first,
Why?
because the board is the one that commissioned it. The board is the one. I don't think that contract was written, I'll have to check Denise, I don't think it was written to go to the plan commission, I think it was written to report to the board.
So when,
Let me
okay.
check on that though,
When do we see it?
let me check on that, it's not.
Is it gonna
directed
be at
to-
our January meeting if they're presenting it to the, I mean, it's going to the public first, so how can it? Why would it go to the board if the public's seeing it before the board and the plan commission?
Janelle, do you have the calendar up there? Do I have these dates backward?
Let me see one second, check real quick.
No, I don't. No, I think that's the way it's written.
I thought when I checked, it was right.
I think that we had, that, I think that's after a board meeting.
The 17th is not.
It's not? Okay, then something's messed up on that, so I'll double.
What are you saying, 17th? Got the 13th and the 27th.
Yeah, but the goal was to have the plan reviewed internally before it was presented to the public.
Oh, there is no January 17th.
That's what I was.
I just pulled up the calendar.
That would be the.
That's a
board.
Wednesday. It's a Wednesday, January 17th.
This on here says Saturday.
So the
Yeah, so
board for
something-
January would be the 16th.
So I have something messed up on, I don't have my work calendar in front of me, but, let me see. there
Will
was-
it be presented at the board on the 16th?
No, it would be presented to the board on the 17th.
That's a
That's
Wednesday.
Wednesday.
So you're looking at January?
Yeah, I'm looking at January, it says the 17th is a Tuesday, or do I have the wrong year here?
The 16th is the board meeting.
Yeah,
Okay,
16th.
I'm on. So yeah, the board is the 16th. Yeah, I just have my dates mixed. Let me figure that out.
But is there something supposed to be going on Saturday, the 14th? I mean, it's written out as a Saturday at 10 a.m.
Saturday is the 13th of January is a Saturday. We have that listed as the. As
Public input.
public input, that one we talked about last
Yep,
time.
and then our next regular meeting is the 23rd.
But that's land use plan.
Right.
Oh, I think it's no, I know what it's Saturday, January 27th.
Yeah, so it's gonna be, so we're gonna have, we'll plan.
The board will see it, then the plan will see it, then
And
the
then it
public
goes,
will see
yeah,
it.
I'm sorry, it's just that the one is a 2, that's a typo. Do you know, right?
No, the agenda says January 27th.
Yeah, I see it on there. That's right.
January, yeah, so go by the agenda says the 27th.
Oh, okay, there's a
The-
typo on the cover sheet. sorry.
This sheet has the,
Okay,
It
Okay.
should be Saturday, January 27th.
yeah,
all right, glad we have that figured out. Okay, matters to be placed on a future agenda referred to a committee official or employee. So we want to have a conversation about dog parks in multifamily complexes.
Do we? Yeah, we should, because we need to put that in the book.
And Ron has
Yes.
something.
Yes. At our meeting, last night, someone mentioned that, a developer was putting in a park. But I don't consider buying one, playground structure and a picnic table a park. But, we have, in our ordinance, we, on subdivisions, we request, payment for park purposes. And why don't we do that for apartment complexes? Have some kind of a surcharge,
Or they actually put in a park.
or when they actually build a park. Or some, I mean, you're putting in these, well, you got 24 units over there now, and you're gonna have one playground structure.
So last
And
night,
we charge somebody else $10,000 a lot
To,
for, for a
For
single
park.
family home.
yeah,
If
for
it-
park purposes.
If it's market rate, I'm fine with that, but if they want to, if they want to do something to make it affordable and commit something, to make it affordable, I think we should have the flexibility to waive that. I don't disagree with you, but everything we do to drive up housing costs is gonna get passed on. And if that's just how it is in its market rate, then okay, fine, but if we can use that as an incentive.
No, I'm not asking, what Ron's asking is not for a dollar amount. We should require them, like we're going to talk about, a fenced-in dog area, if you allow pets in your apartments.
Build a bigger park.
You also now need to build a park
Park area on your complex.
on your complex,
Right.
which is just open grass space. And then they can throw a swing set or whatever else. But, and that's why,
Having more than one playground structure and a picnic table.
Then we need to define it.
you guys, last night when I mentioned
Well,
that,
I
I was
mean, you have
referring
to, that's just the reality.
to,
Yeah.
I'm not
not
saying it's a
this
bad
guy,
thing, it's
I
just-
know.
the 30,000.
Yeah.
Oh.
So, but
Anyway.
it just, one thing led to another, and it's like, that makes sense, that's where it should be. Yeah. Where you have multifamily. And because I also think that the more that those complexes, what am I trying to say? The more housing, it doesn't even matter, the more or less housing. They should be taking care of their own residents. It is not like a single family home. And they should offer some amenities to their people. It could also be for condominiums or whatever. Where, in my opinion, the village shouldn't have to be spending everybody's money on neighborhood parks, because it should have to be included in multifamily
Well, then
development.
let's make that be a public park then, let's not, because otherwise we're just going to build these little silos of people that, okay, well, I live in this complex, so I'm gonna go here, you know, it's part of society is people mixing, so.
And
Can't
you
make
can
somebody's
still,
property public though, you guys.
So that, then I do, I mean, I wonder how much we want to require them on that,
because I think it's easy to get your kids in a car and go take them somewhere. This way they don't have to get in their car and wait, because they can go and you're gonna take 3 toddlers
yeah.
on a bike, come on. In the winter, no, you're gonna get in the car and you're gonna
Talk
drive,
to moms, talk to moms.
yeah.
Talk to moms.
I
And
actually think it's a very good idea to not strain the system, the park system. That, yeah, if you wanna put in 50 units or 100 units, you should provide some amenities for them versus expecting the taxpayers.
That's
to
a
provide
real
those amenities.
dense
right,
area of population.
And we
Yes.
should have some design standards or something for it.
yes, so I think we need to work on both of those. For,
And I like that dog situation even came up tonight.
Mhm.
Because,
it sparked a whole new path
It
and
did.
conversation for us to have.
and what does that cost other than a fence?
Yeah.
Of course, then they might say, well, these are amenities, so now we're gonna charge you more for rent, so.
They're charging more.
But it's really no different than a condo complex saying, I have an outside pool or an inside pool. It's another amenity you are offering to your tenants. And to me, it makes perfect sense.
But what happens to those pools when they put them in? It's not because they want to, it's because they're trying to attract people. And the situation we're in up here is our housing market is so distorted that really you don't have to do much. Okay, I've got a roof and I got 4 walls. Do you want to rent it? Do you want to live here? That's all it takes right now.
But trying
Well,
to
we
make
weren't-
those people's
we
lives
aren't wor-
a little better that do have to live in complex housing.
I guess I'm saying, I'm lamenting that I wish we didn't have to do that. I wish it was
Yeah.
just the market. Let the market do the market, but the market is so distorted. It doesn't work.
Well, discussion wise.
I think it's good for quality of life and
Yep.
save on village resources. Okay, so I don't know if I'll have it next month, but I'll work on it.
We're not asking for it next month, Julie.
Well,
Referring to our future.
Okay,
I thought I heard next month.
no, we just said
Merry
future.
You know,
Okay, so-
bring it back in 25.
I think there's
We'll do
enough
some
other
research on it.
things that we, right. And maybe we just have a conversation about the research that you, if you have time to do it.
Yeah.
Because this is, we can all think about it and we can all do some of our own research. Yes,
We
maybe.
refer a lot of things to Julie, a lot of things. And Julie is a finite resource. I wonder, Julie, and I've thought about asking this a few times, what is the list of things that Plan Commission has asked you for that you're working on? And maybe we could talk about that to make sure that, that we're prioritizing that accordingly.
Yeah, I don't have that much. I have to be honest with you, I love doing this type of stuff. I'm kind of a geek that way. Like right now, I'm supposed to be finishing up that, I have to look at the open space, green space. That one, I don't have too much to bring you. I'm just gonna go through the code and show you where it differs and you guys have to make decisions. And then at the last meeting, Patrice had asked for work on that historic overlay, so that I had worked on previously, so that's there. I have to amend the admin chapter, which I did last January and just never brought to you. I want to work on the sign chapter because I think that's pretty messed up. I want to look at the parking one because I think we could do better on that. And then this, so I mean, it's,
The parking,
yeah, we had said
the
in winter,
zoning,
Yeah.
the parking
in winter,
requirements.
at one of our meetings, we said over the winter, we would
Well,
look
we
at the
have to
parking
meet before you
requirements.
do that because I have the spreadsheet on your computer somewhere.
Okay, yeah, I
And
was.
all the work that I did when then I said I'm done.
Okay, yeah, because mine was just to research and see what are people doing, is there a way, what are new ways people are handling parking?
No, this
stuff
is
like that.
actual,
Number of parking stalls and stuff,
Yeah, that
yeah,
was
I do
pretty
not
special.
have that, I don't have that.
well, it's somewhere.
That got printed out for me. That was that long ago.
Who did it? Who printed it out for you?
Oh, it was printed out. It was part of the packet. I was still like, I got
Oh,
the packets of
paper
that.
packet.
I think I still have my copy, Denise.
Really? Well, I'll have to look on my computer to see if I,
Denise,
I'm
was
pretty
it
sure
you
I've still
that-
got my copy. Yeah,
So I was saying if it was in a packet, I could dig it up.
I think it was just.
I might have presented my work in progress once maybe. Or I
Yeah.
brought, just for conversation, that this is the direction I was going in before I go further. Am I on the right track or so? I don't know, so long ago.
Yeah, I just want to do some research on different ways to do things and. But then you find that, Denise, and then we can look at it, but anyway, so it's. I'm not pushing any of these, like, if I don't have time, I'm not working on it, to be honest with you, unless you say we need it right away. But some of them, the creative stuff I like doing.
Right, is there a motion to adjourn at 8:04?
So move.
I so move.
Motion by Gretzmacher, second by Kane. All those in favor respond with an aye.
Aye.
Carried.
You got it, she's.
See you later, Marge.
Bye.
Bye, everybody. Have a good evening.
You too.
Bye, Marge.
The letter
Bye.
From the door. Attorney.